Hello and welcome to this session, Making Family Involvement Accessible. My name is Claire Anaelie Thomas, and I am your presenter for this session. And I am so excited that you decided to join in and listen on to this conversation. I am currently a kindergarten teacher in Essex County, New Jersey. I have been within the realm of education for the past 10 years. I've been working with children for the past 10 years. I started my career in a childcare center as an assistant teacher. I taught there as a lead teacher in a private preschool. I have been a child's party entertainer. I've worked in a social services agency servicing children and families. And most recently, I began working within the public school system teaching kindergarten. One of my favorite parts of being a teacher and just working with children in general is getting to connect with families, getting to know families, getting to learn about them, the things that they do, the way that they interact, and I have just gained so much knowledge, and I'm excited to be able to share some of what I have learned with you all. I am so excited to be a part of this conference. What the Melanin Magic Conference is doing is extremely important. And I remember when I first began looking for a job as a teacher, one of the things that I made sure to look for in the places that I interviewed and the schools that I visited was that there were other Black educators around, other teachers of color who I can learn from, who I can grow with. It was very, very important to me, especially after being in several different spaces where it was not like that, where there were not a lot of teachers of color, where there were not a lot of just a lot of Black peers around me. And so I was very, very excited when I found the school that I'm at now, which is a very diverse school where the teaching staff is diverse, where I get to be surrounded by people that I can truly be myself around and who have helped me grow to the educator that I am right now. It is so important that this conference is happening because I know that not many people have that space and not many people have the same opportunities within their schools. And so for us to have this space created for us, by us, where we're able to learn from each other and grow together is extremely important and special. And I am just so excited to be a part of it. I'm grateful to be a part of this community and to get to grow and learn with all of you. So let's get started with our session. All right. So, again, the title of the session is called Making Family Involvement Accessible. I really wanted to talk about this topic because so many times I've spoken to different teachers or you overhear different conversations, and parental or family involvement is always such a huge topic, right? Because there's oftentimes two ends of the spectrum. There's sometimes the parent that is extremely involved. That means that they are calling you, they are texting you, you are speaking to them every single day. They are coming to the classroom to read, they are chaperoning, they're participating in any and everything that the school has to offer. And then there's sometimes the other side of that where you only meet the parent once and you don't really see them much throughout the school year. You don't hear from them. They don't respond to emails. They don't respond to texts. You don't see them at the conferences. You are not seeing them until maybe the last day, or maybe you'll see them once for one of the conferences. And so there's always talks around, well, this parent doesn't want to be involved. This family doesn't care. This family doesn't seem to want to be a part of their child's growth, their child's success. And we have to kind of step away from that, even though sometimes it may appear that way, but we never know what different people are going through. And also, are they able to access the information? Are they able to, is it a lack of involvement, or is it a lack of access? And so during this presentation, we are really going to be focused on the other side of the spectrum, right? So for those parents that are not as involved, those families that we do not see as often. Why are we not seeing them, and what can we do to help them become more involved, to help them become more engaged? How can we make family involvement more accessible? So we already know this, but the familiar relationship plays a huge role, not just in the early childhood classroom, but in the school in general, and from K to 12 in general. And school and classroom rules are not always inclusive or accommodating or accessible for all families. And in this session, we're going to be discussing family involvement and the ways we as educators can make our classroom inclusive and accessible for all families. Our objective. So we will define family involvement. We will discuss ways that families have the opportunities to be involved and engaged within the school and classroom. We will evaluate how effective, inclusive, and accessible family involvement is in school based and some common practices. And we will identify changes that can be made to make family involvement more accessible this coming school year. These are some quotes around family involvement that just really resonated with me. The first one, what is the most underused resource in education today? Parents. And this is by Lauren Trebarlis. The other one, when families are involved in their in their child's learning, both at home and at school, children do better in school. And the final one, at the end of the day, the most overwhelming key to a child's success is the positive involvement of parents. And this is from Jane D. Hall. And all of these really resonated with me because we all know and we have seen it how important family involvement is for the student's advancement. We all know this, and we had to make sure that we are doing our part to make sure that all families are able to have access in a way that suits them, in a way that benefits them and the child, so that they can be more involved, so that they can help with their child's success, so that they can be involved in their child's education. So, what comes to mind when you hear the phrase family involvement? I know for me personally, when I hear family involvement, I think about someone being present, right? Whether that is physically present, like I'm seeing them constantly, or it could be present just I know that I have their number, they have my number, they have my information, and I hear from them. They hear from me. I know them. They know me. They know the classroom. They know the school. They know what is going on with their child, with the student. To me, it's all about being present. That's what I think of when I hear the phrase family involvement. So I took the time to ask some of my educator friends this same question. What do they think of when they hear the phrase family involvement? And I'm going to be sharing some of their responses. So, this one person says, to me, active involvement is meaningful engagement from family with a shared goal of individual student success. Family involvement means a child's family is a part of the school community in whatever capacity best suits them. For some students, the focus may be academic, for some, social or behavioral, but family involvement to me means family is present in the community however they can. And those two end lines, however they can, and in the capacity that best suits them, really resonated with me. Um, this one says, there's family presence, whether it's through phone conversations or physical being. There are there a relationship has formed between the school and the family. Yes, there's a family presence, whether it's through phone. Oh, I have that up there twice. The parents involved in their kids' schooling, like how they can help them advance academically. And so important that educators remember that lack of access is not a lack of involvement. The responsibility is ours to provide access to our community. Yes, yes, yes to all of these. So, family involvement, what is it? Parental and family involvement. So when you look up family involvement, what comes up is parental involvement. And it can refer to the amount of participation a parent has when it comes to schooling and her child's life. And I got the second one from the New Jersey website. As I mentioned before, I am from New Jersey and I teach in the state of New Jersey. So this is from the New Jersey State website, state.newjersey .us/education. And their definition says the term parental involvement means the participation of parents in regular two-way meaningful communication involving student academic learning and other school activities, including ensuring that parents play an integral role in assisting their child's learning, that parents are encouraged to be actively involved in their child's education at school, that parents are full partners in their child's education and are included in appropriate and decision making and advisory committees to assist in the education of their child. And so this is a very great definition, and it really made me think about what my school and my community is doing. Like, are we making the parents an integral role? Are we allowing them to assist in their child's learning? Are we giving them opportunities to be actively involved in the school? Are we allowing them to be a part of the decision making with their child? And so this is a great it's a great definition, and it's a great way to view and analyze if what we're doing matches up with giving families access to be able to be involved within the school community. So, some examples of some common school-wide or classroom-based family involvement opportunities. So, this is just some things that I know that some different schools are doing, some things that are typical within a school. So, a school typically will have a parent association where parents may get together, they may discuss things about the school, they may plan different events in the school, and be able to participate in different things that may go on classroom wide. Typically, there might also be a school-wide newsletter. I know that my school does this, where the teachers, the administrators, they let families know the events that are going on, important dates, just things that are going on within the school or within the district. Phone blasts and email blasts are also another typical way that things are communicated with families. So when there's announcements, when things are coming up, the families will get a phone call, they will get emails that lets them know what is going on. There's some schools that have classroom parents that are responsible for planning different things for the classroom. If there's classroom parties going on, the parent might be responsible for setting it up, have people sign up. They might come, there's schools where parents are actually able to come into the building. So there are classroom volunteers, parent teacher conferences that may happen multiple times a year. I know for us, we have three opportunities to meet with parents throughout the year. Something that I forgot to include in here is also like parent night or back to school night. Some schools allow parents to come in again to the classroom, so class story time might be a way for families to participate. Career day, where families are able to come in and share their career with different with the students and the different things that they know how to do. And so these are some typical and common ways that um, families are able to get involved in schools. Now, based on your school community, how effective are these examples? And what options do families have that are not part of the majority? So I'm just going to go back to dissect these a little bit, right? How effective are these? So, how effective is a school wide newsletter? If you are in a community where maybe 20 or 30% of the families are English is not their first language and they have a hard time understanding and reading in English, how effective will a school wide newsletter be? How effective is a phone blast if you have a family that is hearing impaired, right? and they or a family that does not have access to a phone, a family that does not have access to email. How effective is a phone or email blast for those families? Chaperoning opportunities, those are great, but if all of the events happen at the same time, every single event happens at the same time, and this there are families who are working, who have a schedule, and they wouldn't be able to participate in chaperone if an event didn't happen from 4 to 6, but instead happened from 3 to 5, or earlier in the day, throughout the day. They would be able to chaperone and participate and be involved, but because every single event happens from 4 to 6 or from 5 to 7, they're not able to do that. Um, Parent teacher conferences, those are typically given ahead of time, and so people are able to plan for that. But if, let's say, you are a teacher and your classroom is located on the third floor and you have a child whose parent is disabled or who is using a wheelchair, are they able to access you for the parent teacher conference? If they cannot, and there's no elevator in the school, if they cannot get up the stairs, can they access you? If there are no ramps to enter the building, are they able to participate in the parent teacher conferences? Are parent teacher conferences only in person? Or do parents have the opportunity to have their conference via phone instead? So you have to think about all of these things. While they are the norm, while they are common, how accessible are they for everyone? Is it only 70% of the family population is that are able to access this in a way that works for them? What about the rest? And so this is what I really wanted to talk about today. How can we take these common practices, these common school-wide examples, and make sure that we are leaving room for every single family to be able to participate, for every single family to be able to get involved. Um, so I'm going to be talking a little more about that. Some things to keep in mind, because while some of these things are school rules, some of these things might be district-wide, district rules. We also have a say, right? We can do what we need to do. We can talk to administrators. We can set different things up to make sure that our families have access. So, some things to keep in mind when we are curating opportunities for parents to be involved, when we are creating events, when we are sending out newsletters. What some things that we need to keep in mind? The not one thing for me, language barriers. As someone who grew up in a household where my mother did not speak very much English, this is a huge one for me, and one I always keep in mind. Will these families be able to access the information that is given if they have a language barrier? And this is going to depend very much on your district, very much on the community that you work in. If you have a community where maybe more than half of the population speaks a different language, or does not speak English very well, things may already be in place for that, right? But what about all the other families? A lot of the times there's a lot of forms. Forms are typically given in English and in Spanish, but what about the family who does not fit into either of those categories? They do not speak English, or read English very well, and they're not Spanish speaking. Are there are ways that we can still make information accessible for them even with the language barriers? When phone blasts are going out, are they only going out in English? When there are parent workshops, when there are different things that are going on, are there people there to translate for those who will not understand, who will not be able to access the information? So language barriers is something that we really have to keep in mind, and it is very much a case by case basis. It is very much a community basis, because you may be in a community, your school may be in a community where in or your classroom you may have that all of your students and all of their families understand English very well and they speak English very well. And so there may not be a need for translation at any event. There may not be a need to make the information accessible in a different language. But once you have one child, one family who needs it in a different language, then automatically should be something that goes on the radar and is made accessible for that family, even if it is just one family. Something else to keep in mind, physical barriers. So, is the actual school building accessible for every single family? Do you have, if you have a student whose family is in a wheelchair or whose family has physical limitations, are they able to still access the building when events are going on? Is there a ramp for them to use to get into the event? When there's a parent teacher conference, if your room is located on the third floor, how are the families able to get to you, or how are they able to access the building? Do they have physical access to the building? Are there any barriers that are limiting them from physically accessing the building? It is something that is very important to keep in mind. I know for me personally, if I have a student who has a family with a physical disability, they would not be able to access my classroom in the event of a parent teacher conference. And so we would have to make sure that we first know this in advance and make the necessary accommodation to make sure that that parent, that family, still is able to meet with the teacher, is still able to meet with the administration, is still able to, depending on how pickup and drop off goes at your in your school building, is still able to pick up and drop off their child. I remember a story recently. This influencer that I follow on Instagram, she was sharing how she began to look for childcare for her daughter. Her daughter is going to go. I believe her daughter is 2 or 3. She might be going to preschool, and she was visiting different centers. She was visiting different preschools, and she found this one preschool. She loved it. This woman is on a wheelchair. She got to the preschool and she was unable to access the building. There were no ramps. It was steps in the front, steps on the side, steps in the back. There were no ramps and there was no way for her to physically access the building. And so she could not even go in to the appointment, to view the school, to meet with the director, because she couldn't physically access it. So we have to make sure that we are thinking about those families, right? Will all families be able to physically access the building, physically access the school, physically access the classroom if they need to speak to the teacher, if they need to come for a parent teacher conference, if they need to pick up their child? That is something that we need to be thinking about and how we can make the building accessible for those people. Um, the other thing to think about, tone and presentation of opportunity. So, an example of that is like, what language are you using in your communication? When you are speaking, when you are sending out emails, when you are writing newsletter, are you referring to everybody as parents? Are you referring to everyone as to mom and dads? Because as we know, right, family now means a lot more than just mom and dad. Family is more than just someone who is their parent. There's children that are being raised by their grandparents, their aunts, their uncles, children who may have two moms or two dads or just one mom. And so we had to make sure that when we are sending out different things, when we are communicating with families, we are using inclusive language to make families feel welcome, to make families know, to let families know that they belong, to make them want to come, right? Want to be involved, to know that they are being included in what is going on. And so the tone and the presentation of the opportunities to get involved have to be taken into consideration. Um, Another thing that is I find extremely important is parent feedback and recommendation and actually taking them and using them. Because a lot of times, let's be honest, we may ask for feedback, we may ask for opinions, and we do nothing with them. So if there was an event that happened last school year, you had the parents do a feedback, and the parents said, I didn't really like it. It didn't really, our family didn't really connect with this. Our children didn't really enjoy this. And maybe you saw that not a lot of parents, not a lot of families came out, and you might want to reconsider, right? You might want to take in the recommendation of the families, take in the recommendation of the parents, take in the recommendation of those who are involved, and see where you can do better, how you can change it, how you can adjust it to make sure that you are listening to the community. Because at the end of the day, anything that you are doing is for them. It's for the students, it's for the families, it's for them to be able to get engaged. And if they are telling you, we did not like this, then it's up to us to change it. It's up to us to make sure that we are giving families something that they can use, something that they want to be engaged in, something that they want to be involved in. So families need access, and that is what I really want you to take away from this conversation. We have to make sure that we are providing them access. Number one, access to the space. This should be a huge priority for any school building, right? That all families are able to access the space, and they know how to access it. For example, if the front of the building, the main door, has steps, there should be something there that says, if you need a ramp, the back of the building is how you will access it. This is how you have to make it clear to the families on how they can access the space, how they can get into the building. And they need to know this in advance. Because I know for myself, if I'm going somewhere, whatever appointment it is, I look up every single detail. And if parking is going to be an issue, if something else is going to be an issue, I like to know ahead of time, and I like to know how to plan for it. And so we have to make sure that we let them know ahead of time. And if it seems like it's something that is not going to work for me, that I'm not going to have a good experience, I will not go. And so if the parent does drop off and they only ever see those steps in the front, and they don't know that there is a ramp towards the back or a ramp towards the side or a different entrance where they will be able to access the space, they might not come. You might not see that parent because they don't know. And so not only do we have to make the space accessible, we then have to let the families know that they are able to have access, that this is how you gain access, this is how you enter, this is where you enter, this is the space that is, this is how you are able to get access to the space. The next thing is having access to information and materials. So, like I said before, if we're thinking about people having language barriers, if we're thinking about people having physical barriers, right? If I know that there are families who maybe someone in the family is hearing impaired and this person is the main line of communication, every single piece of information should not be going out through a phone blast. I then need to make that information accessible via email. I can send a letter. Make sure that all families have access to that information, and it goes vice versa, right? If there may be families who are vision impaired, and so they need the phone blast, they need the phone call, they need the communication via phone versus reading the information or getting it via email or getting a letter. And so we have to make sure we're thinking about both sides of it and making all information that is provided to families accessible in multiple different ways. And not just multiple different ways, but maybe depending on your community and the need in your community, multiple different languages. Something that you can utilize that is very simple. Where if you're writing letters, if you're writing emails, Google Translate. I would just plug whatever I wrote into Google Translate and and add it in there and allow parents to write in the language that they're comfortable, and then I do the same thing, reverse plug it into Google Translate so that I can be able to access information. If you have ever used Class Dojo also has the option to change your message that you type from English to the language that you need it to be, and vice versa. And so those are ways that we can make the information truly accessible for all of those who need it. And having access to the teacher and administration. This is a very important one. Families should be able to know how to contact us through email, through phone, through text. We need to be able to give families access to us so that they know that they can communicate things with us, things that they need us to know about their child, things that they need us to know about their families that may be going on. And we also need to be communicating with them, right? We need to be able to let them know, oh, this is going on in the classroom, this is going on with their child. And this is how we allow them to be a part of the decision making. Because if we know that a child is struggling, and we're trying to come up with a plan of action, talking to the family, letting them know what is going on, they may be able to give us a perspective that we would not have if we do not talk to them. If you remember the one of the quotes that I showed you, that said that the most underutilized resource in education is the parents, right? The families, because we are not always taking into account their experiences, and they have known their child the longest. They've known them longer than we've known them. And so the information that they are able to give us, that they're able to provide us, is really truly beneficial and can make a world of difference. But they can't provide us with that information if they don't have access to us, if we are not opening the line of communication and building that relationship. And the word relationship, it's the relationship is so important, because none of this can happen without the relationship, right? Because without the relationship, we may not know that someone needs physical access to the space, and we may not know that someone is hearing impaired or vision impaired and they need a different way to access the information. But by talking to families, by building that relationship and having them share the different things, that is how we're able to know what they need. That is how we are able to know that they can't access what we're giving them. They need a different way to access, a different way for us to meet their needs. And then we can make the proper accommodations. Then we can make the proper arrangement. And so, building that relationship with families, building that relationship from the very beginning to make sure that parents and families and guardians have access immediately and are able to be involved immediately and engage in meaningful ways that works for them. It all starts with that relationship. I am extremely excited for this next school year to be able to just meet the new students and meet the new families, get to know them, be able to have them be involved. I think one of the things that, for me, one of the really good things that came out of um, teaching from home this past school year, I taught from home for about half the school year, was the family relationship that I was able to build, and just the access that the families were able to have, right? Because since I teach kindergarten, a lot of my families, they were right there with their student, and being able to see what they're learning, being able to engage, being able to ask me a question, being able to talk to me right in the moment. And I truly appreciated that about this past year, because I felt like it gave families more access than some of them probably ever had before. I had a parent who, she we talked about how she for a long time struggled with being involved in her children's school careers because of the hours that she works, right? So her mom would always be the one to do pickup, the one to speak to the teacher because of the hours that she worked. And she's worked those hours for a while, and she had three children, and one of them was in an upper grade. And because we were at home, because of just how things worked out, she was able to actually be there next to her child for at least part of it. And she was able to meet me and speak to me and be able to be engaged and be involved in a way that she never was able to do it before, right? So we have to make sure that that continues. I want to make sure that that continues, that parents, that families are they are given access to the material that their child is learning, to what we're talking about, to me, to administration, so that their concerns are being alleviated, so that their questions are being answered, and they are just engaged in what is going on with their child and what is going on with their education. I really hope that some of this information was valuable to you. I hope that it gets you thinking about what is going on in your school and in your classroom, and some of the ways that you can go about creating access for all of your families, and making sure that the material, the space, and everything in between is accessible for them, so that they can begin to get involved and they can be a part of their child's education, a part of the school community, and the things that go on with the community. If you would like to connect with me, you can follow me on Instagram at Claire Anaelie. You can also send me an email if you want to give me some feedback. My email is hello@claireanaelie.com. And I would really, really appreciate feedback on this presentation. You can scan the QR code and it will take you to a Google form and you can complete it. I would love to know if you had any takeaways. I would love to know any ways that you think that I can improve this presentation in the future. As I said, I am growing, and I would love to, and any feedback is helpful in helping with my journey to grow and just get better in every single aspect. I wish you guys the best in the next school year. It might be challenging. We definitely know it will be challenging with the changes that are going to come. I know that several people worked from home the entire school year last year, and at least for us, our state in New Jersey, no one has that option for the next school year. And so it's going to just be very interesting to go back to what we once knew, even though we know that it probably will never be exactly like that again. But I am looking forward to this next school year. I'm looking forward to what happens. I'm looking forward to connecting with families. I would love to connect with you. So send me a DM, send me an email. Please fill out the feedback form. I appreciate you tuning into this session, and I hope that it was helpful. Thank you.